Hello, everyone, and welcome to Care Answered's webinar, Planning to Age Well. My name is Nicole Christensen. I am the president of Care Answered, where we provide patient advocacy and care coordination. Our mission is to access the best care for our clients while giving their loved ones peace of mind and empowering all patients. We get healthcare done. I am also the author of the book From Crisis to Calm, and I'm here with fellow presenters, Peter Gordon who is a daily money manager and president of New York Financial Organizers, and backed by popular demand, Mark has been with us before, Mark A. Badami, a CFP, CLTC, a financial services representative for a Center for Wealth Management. And so we're going to be talking about planning to age well. And if we're living, we're aging. So there is planning to do. So thank you so much for being here. And let me get started with how we can do this and plan well for ourselves or our loved ones. So I'm sure all of us are always learning. That's part of living. And I've been fortunate enough to attend a conference for patient advocates. And I heard from Beacon Patient Solutions, and they gave a wonderful presentation on solo aging, and the 7 planning needs is what they had mentioned. So I am sharing that with you. Now, a solo ager is probably not something we are terribly familiar with, or even if we are, let's get an update. So a solo ager is someone who is 55 and over who do not have a reliable support system. So that is many, many people. Some of us, when we think of a reliable support system, we may think, or a safety net, we may think of a spouse or a partner, children. Some folks do not have those, but then there are others of us that may have a partner or a spouse or children, but they may not be appropriate to help us in our aging and this planning to age for whatever reason. Or, as I say in my family, many hands make light work. So we want to make sure we have people in place for all of this planning. And often it's not best to have that to be one person. So the 7 planning needs that we're going to talk about, I'll talk about a little bit in depth, is healthcare needs and management, age diverse and robust networks, a dynamic life. We're going to put those 2 together, advanced care planning, residential decisions and transactions, investments, financial decisions, and money management, which a lot will be spoken about there by both Mark and Peter, and then legal representation. So let's go into that a little bit more. So healthcare needs and management. This is something that we all need, always. And so past 18 and sometimes a little longer, there's generally nobody else really in charge of that except ourselves. We have to be our best advocate and manage our healthcare needs. So one of the things I talk about a lot is doctors, right? We have to have the doctors in place, whether that means doctors that fall into your insurance, the best doctor for whatever part of your body, the specialist, all of those things need to be in place. And we need to be able to speak and make appointments with those doctors. We really need to, every patient, be seeing somebody at least annually, no matter what our age is. I also say to use one pharmacy if at all possible. So if you're a person that takes more than one medication, when you have it going to one pharmacy, they can hopefully help you to make sure that there's no counterindications for those medications, so that one medication is not hurting you because you're taking it with another medication. And also to have a list of those medications with their dosages that you take to every single doctor, whether they prescribed the medication or not. And again, you want to include supplements, vitamins, anything like that. So you should be bringing that with you. There's also Portals now, which is an app that can give you better understanding and communication with your different clinicians or healthcare providers. So I find those to be really important because they can make that communication quicker, and you can catch potential mistakes. We're all people here. So if it says something in your portal that's a different diagnosis that you're aware, or there's a question because what you understood in the doctor's appointment is not what you're seeing in the doctor's notes, this is a really good way of communicating and addressing those concerns quickly. And knowing your medical history and medical information, again, preparing for every doctor's visit, and then having somebody there. Knowing and sharing your medical history. So the person who is helping you in this planning, it has to be somebody that you know and trust with your medical information so that you can share it. So there's more than you kind of understanding what's going on in your medical journey. You have the portals, you have your clinicians, and it's good to have somebody else. And we'll talk a little bit about that in regard to healthcare proxies. But also, again, putting people in place to help share this information in case you can't speak for yourself. And that speaks to healthcare proxies as well. Again, somebody that can speak for you if you're incapacitated. But in addition, somebody that knows this information when you have full capacity, but sometimes it's really overwhelming. So having somebody to know that information that you trust is really important. Okay. Age, diverse, and robust network, living a dynamic life. So I call this expanding your world. I know within the confines of the COVID pandemic and even beyond, we're still dealing with it, is we had to make our world small for real and true and life-saving reasons. But it also brought to light how isolation and loneliness is really hurting us, our mental health and physical health, and killing some people. So your community, who you surround yourself with, is so important at any age. So working on having this diverse group and living a robust life and a dynamic life doesn't start at 55. It doesn't start at 85. It starts right now. So take the opportunity to build community, do activities, travel. If you don't have to be wealthy, you don't maybe have to go to all of the beautiful countries and states, but there are activities that you can participate that are a little outside your comfort zone, that are not the same, 10 people that you always hang out with that have the same, they're in the exact same stage of life or they do the same things. We know, and it's been told to us, that it's harder to make friends the older you get, but that's not necessarily has to be that way. It's about being resourceful and about actually putting diverse people in your life and doing new things so that you can hear about different points of views or different activities or different cultures or different foods. Of course, I say foods because I love food, but just going outside of your comfort zone. One thing that I've heard before that I believe is true is if it's exciting, but a little bit uncomfortable, it might be something you want to explore because that means it's outside your comfort zone and that's where you can grow and learn. And I have here, say yes. You know, sometimes we get into a rut of saying, no, I don't know if I really want to do that. Just say yes. Shonda Rhimes, who is the maker of shows like Grey's Anatomy and many others, she had this book that was The Year of Yes. And I read it and it spoke to me, but just for all of us, there's 100 reasons to say no, but why not say yes? Because that can really open, again, different opportunities and different adventures in your life to meet new people and again, expand your community. So now we get to like more concrete things, right? So residential decisions and transactions. Thinking about again with your tribe of people or your friends or people that you're newly making friends with, where do you want to live down the road? You know, are you a person that's want to scale down, or do you want to live in a different climate? Do you want to spend your days on a cruise ship? Do you want to stay in the same place and really age in place because this is your community, that's where you want to stay? Um, would you consider living in a senior community when you got older, or if you needed assistance, potentially in assisted living? There's many different things. Those are just some examples. But thinking about that and having those discussions, and them not be scary, because it's, again, it's an adventure. And so seeing what other people are thinking about and knowing what options may be available to you is really important. And if there are monetary transactions for these things, which there is for everything, because care costs money and life costs money, seemingly, um, do you do you have it to do? Do you have to handle that? Do you want to be handling all those transactions? Is that something within your control? Do you have someone in place in case you can't, for whatever reason, you can't handle those transactions or those residential decisions, so that somebody that can voice your opinion for you or your thoughts for you because you've had these discussions prior to needing it. Um, if you don't have someone in place to take care of that for you, now is the time to think of what criterion you would want for that person, so that you can select the right person for you. Advanced care planning. So I think of this as how you wish to live, and death is a part of life. So it's also about how you wish to end, how you wish the end of your life to be. And it doesn't have to, this is not a morbid discussion. It's just the truth of life. What do you want? It could be very different from somebody else. Um, I speak again about healthcare proxy. I know anybody that's listened to me speak has heard me say it a million times, but it's so very important to share your health information with somebody you trust, and then make that person or appropriate person your healthcare proxy on paper. Care Answered can help you with that, help you discern who might be that best person, facilitate those discussions, and even give you a card, a QR with a QR code, so that, God forbid, you're hospitalized, it would have that information, as well as we can put it in your patient portal with your primary care physician. So these are really important discussions and they're ongoing. What you want at the end of life may have to do with your residential desires. It may have to do with your culture, your religion, your faith, um, just where you are at life. The plan that you may have today in 10, 15 years from now may change. So it's an ongoing discussion and it's ongoing planning. And how do you get the things that you wish for? So you're making these plans. How do you get that to happen? It's picking the right people. Um, uh, what was said to me was your own board of directors, right? Your planning board of directors. So having those people in place, selecting them, is very important. Now, investments, as I said, financial decisions and money management. Mark and Peter will probably enlighten all of us a little bit more about this, but it's planning for the life you want. Who can help you do that? What are the actual options, and how are they going to be implemented? What will you need in place to implement those? And lastly, legal representation. Um, Care Answered works with a lot of fabulous elder law attorneys, trust and estate attorneys, and others. For legal representation, this is who you go to. You don't go to any lawyer or your friend's lawyer that, does business. You want to get to an elder law attorney, and they can help you with a lot of this. And the planning is crucial. You don't want to be making these decisions in a crisis. You want to be thinking and planning now. They can help you to get an appropriate financial power of attorney and get that set now or very soon. and help you figure out who that person should be. Financial power of attorney makes financial decisions for you if you are incapacitated for whatever reason. Again, you doesn't mean you're incapacitated forever. It doesn't mean you're actually incapacitated as far as everybody else would see, but you just don't have the capacity at that time to be making all those filling out and managing all that financial responsibility. And now you have somebody already in place so that you don't have to worry about it in a crisis situation. So those are, I know I went through them quickly, and we could have an entire webinar on each one of those things, and maybe we'll do that in 2024. But those are some really important things to think about, and Care Answered can help you with that. The point is to start now, to thinking about these things now and not later. Does anybody have any questions for me? You can put it in the chat or you can speak right up. All right. So without further ado, then I will introduce our friend Peter, and he is going to talk to us a little bit more about that money management portion.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Gordon, and I'm the president of New York Financial Organizers. We're daily money managers. Most people haven't heard about daily money managers, and very important to say we're not financial advisors. We do all of the non-investment side of personal finances. And so what we're going to talk about today is just what a daily money manager is, and how we work, and the fact that we work with teams of professionals, and the importance of tracking income and expenses, as well as creating a budget. And this is critical to being a solo ager, because really you want to have a handle on the money you're spending. It's a lot of people focus on how much money they have and what their assets are, but it's very important to know just how much you're spending, so how long those assets will last you. And that's what we'll talk about. So a daily money manager, someone who delivers essential financial services to, more often than not, seniors and older adults. We work with people who have cognitive issues, but it could also be busy professionals, people who don't have time to really track their spending, to figure out how much they have and how much money, where their money is going. In addition, we work with high net worth individuals who might just have so much money and not want to spend the time, not working necessarily, but they want to know just what their expenses are and how to handle their personal finances. Many daily money managers work with small businesses. We don't do that. We really focus on consumers. And finally, we also work with people with disabilities. So it's not age related and it's not money related, but it's really their ability to make the financial decisions and then transact the transactions that are necessary to keep their finances going. We also act as fiduciaries. So prior to this, Nicole mentioned some interesting legal terms like power of attorney, healthcare proxy. There's also trustee and executor. We act in that capacity very often with people who are solo agers because they don't have family members who often act as power of attorney or as an executor or trustee. And, they might not also have somebody they trust to do that. So we take that responsibility. And we generally work in teams of other professionals. So I want to talk about the other professionals we work with and how we work. I view us as being part of a trusted advisory team, and there's no one group of individuals that we work with all the time. It all depends on the person that we're helping and who the team, who's managing that. So in this case, this is an individual who is in need of help, in need of services, and they're working with a daily money manager. That might be working with an elder law attorney. They have a financial advisor. There's a patient advocate, maybe a doctor or a nurse, and home health care agency. And this, I look at this as being, we being as a daily money manager, a spoke in the wheel, where the wheel is the client or the individual we're helping, and the spokes are the individuals who are the professionals supporting that that person. Now, as I said, it could change. It doesn't have to be, you know, every case is different. So sometimes we're hired by family members who might be out of town or just might be overwhelmed. You know, they might be part of the sandwich generation where they have kids that they're taking care of as well as their parents, and they want somebody to help them with they want somebody to help their family member with the non-investment side of personal finance. Well, that would be us. And then it could be any combination. You know, you could really put, instead of financial advisor, accountant, and it could be more than, you know, these 6. It could be 8 or it could be less. The important thing is to know that the number of advisors in the advisory team is not critical. It's the ones that you hopefully trust and that are helping you create a support system that makes sense for that person who's in the center. So the backbone of our work is tracking income and expenses. And what we do is we download our clients' checking account and credit card accounts into Quicken. And that's an off-the-shelf program. There are a lot of programs out there that work with personal finance. We chose to use Quicken. And we then prepare and review monthly income and expense reports. And what we do is we categorize every single transaction that comes into the account. So we know exactly how much money is coming in and exactly how much money is going out. And whoops, sorry about that. And again, that's important because while we know how many assets and what the values of our clients' assets are, it's not enough, because you have to know how much money is being spent to know how long those assets are going to last. And then we'll also provide what we call a financial snapshot. And I'll give examples of both those reports and the financial snapshot. So here's an income and expense report. And as you could tell, it shows the income, right? Whoop. It doesn't like it when I use my mouse, so I'm not going to do that. This client had a total income of $3,400. And then we break the expenses down to auto and to cash and to entertainment, what they were using. There are a lot more. And this is just a piece of it, but then you see the total expenses in this case are $5,400. And their income is only $3,400. So that every month there's a deficit of $2,000. Well, where is that money going to come from? How is that going to be, that deficit going to be made up? And we're there to help with that, to provide that roadmap. One of the things we do is provide a financial snapshot. So yeah, so that was the income and expense side. Well, this is the net worth side. This particular client doesn't have a lot of liabilities. They have a couple of credit card accounts, and they had money in an IRA. They had a condo which was worth $375,000 at the time, a checking account and a savings account. So their total net worth was $431,000, and they're going in the hole every month $2,000. So it, in theory, would last a long time. The issue here was that they had to tap into the condo value to really make up for it over time. You know, their net worth was in that condo. So what we did is we advised them on getting a mortgage on their condo, a first mortgage. That is not something we do. We advise people to do that. We give them the information, and we recommended an attorney and a mortgage broker and worked with their financial advisor to to make it work. And it was actually very successful for this particular client. She was actually a friend of my mom's from many years ago, and she passed away at 96. But because of our information that we provided, they saw that they were going to have to make a decision, and they got a mortgage, and she was able to, spend the last years of her life very comfortable and relatively happy, and her family didn't have to worry about, well, where this money is going to come from. And the key there is that they had the information they needed, and all of this, as I said, flowed from the information we get from checking accounts and credit card accounts. Sometimes we'll help somebody create a budget. So using the data that we have from Quicken, we set up a monthly chart of expected or desired income and expenses. You kind of know what your income is going to be. You don't really know what your expenses are. And what we'll then do is we'll compare the actual spending and the income to the budgeted amounts, and then we adjust the budgets over time. And the value of this is really best seen by doing it on a quarterly or semi-annual basis. And then what we have found is that when we show that to our clients, and they could say, wow, oh, I can't believe I'm spending that much money on clothing, or I need to put money into in my home, maybe I should go out to eat less. But all those information comes from the budget. And so this is not a real budget. We kind of just plug numbers in, but you could see that, well, I'm sorry, I did that again. Sorry about that. You could see here in a monthly snapshot of what you wanted to budget and what you actually spent. So in this case, the budgeted amount for medical was $1,200, $690 was spent. And so you had a difference, you had a surplus of $510. But really where this is valuable is over time. And if we take a look at it on a quarterly and then semi-annual and annual basis, then you can make the changes necessary to do that. The big part of being a solo ager is being able to afford your life. And the most important aspect is to have the knowledge of just what you have and how long it will last. And that's certainly the information we're able to provide will help people make those decisions. So I don't know if there are any questions, but I'm happy to take that now and or later. I think you're up.
I don't see any in the chat, so thank you so much, Peter. That was really helpful.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mark Badami. I have to say, I don't know, it's a tough fact to follow. You guys are so articulate and passionate about what you're talking about. I hope I can live up to the standard. Solo aging. There's so many things that you guys are touching on, and I wanted to bring up with regards to aging in anyone over 55, the aging by themselves that you have to look at, especially when it comes to retirement planning. Something that Nicole brought up, she said, know and share your medical history. It's funny because just the other day, well, I guess I might as well share everything. It's a big family, right? Whatever. So I had a colonoscopy last week, and the bill came, and it came, I opened up the bill from NYU Langone, and I look at it, and I'm like, oh, whatever my share was down there. But I looked at who it was for, and it indicated my 13-year-old daughter got a colonoscopy. So I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, that is really a mismanagement of knowing and sharing. So I was like, I asked my wife, I said, did you not tell me that Emerson had to go for a colonoscopy? She's like, no, it's Emerson didn't go. You went. I was like, I know that, but apparently they must have miscoded the whole thing. So it's kind of knowing and sharing your information is really important, especially when you don't know what's going on. Especially if my daughter was getting a colonoscopy, which I had no idea. But anyway, 55 and plus. If you're be responsible or reasonably responsible for yourself, and you're single, there are some things you should know about. Now, I just did a presentation not a couple of hours ago to a group of accountants, and we're talking about how at age 67, if a married couple retiring in fair health, not excellent health, not superior health, just fair health, obviously they were going through this, they were seeing their doctor on a regular basis, so they have some good basis. I got some great facts, some really great stats. But so the longevity of two people married, retiring at age 67, the life expectancy of the male is 88 years old. And the life expectancy of the female is almost 90, 89.7 years old. That's the life expectancy together. If one were to die beforehand, then there's a different life expectancy for the pair or for the individual. And if you meet your life expectancy at age 88 and you're still alive, you have a new life expectancy. So we were looking at those stats, and we were talking about how there's certain things that happen that when you're married, filing a joint tax return, if one spouse were to die, what does that affect happen? What affects to you living wise? What are some of the effects? Well, one of the things we spoke about was income. Your income may stay the same. And I was looking at a chart. I talked about the income tax bracket, just the income alone. If you're talking about a married filing joint tax return and a salary of $80,000, you would be in the 22% tax bracket. And now, not only are you in the 22% tax bracket, but you also have a credit for your what's it called? You have a credit of $12,500. Each of you have a $12,000 credit. Sorry, $12,000 credit for filing a tax return. So that's $24,000 credit. So if you have a credit and all of a sudden you pass away, one person passes away, that credit's cut in half to $12,000. Then you also have to look at your tax bracket for roughly the same salary. Your tax bracket all of a sudden went from 22% up to, from 12% up to 22%. So now you're talking about someone who's living in retirement. They were living happily married, and all of a sudden one person dies. Not only do you have to suffer the loss of that individual, but you also have to pay more taxes to do that. And then someone brought up the fact that you get this credit that's if you could file a tax return for a joint survivor as a widow for 2 years, but that's only if you have a qualifying child at home. So if you don't have a qualifying child at home, your taxes are going to go up, and you lose a part of your credit. So this is something that you have to plan for, just in case, the just in case thing. Taxes right now are relatively low compared to what they've always been in an average. The average highest marginal tax bracket was around 61%. And it goes back from 1913 when it first started at 13%. The tax was 13% in 1913. And then it went up to as high as 94% in the 40s. It didn't only come down until, and significantly, it came down when Ron Reagan was president in 1986, when the Tax Reform Act of 86 came around, and they actually cut all the brackets down to like relatively right around where they are now. So could taxes go up in retirement? Yeah, quite possibly they can. So they're relatively low right now. We have, I think, something like a $37 trillion deficit right now. The likelihood of taxes going up during retirement age, unfortunately, that's probably pretty good. So there's some of the things that you should look at, or should be aware of at least. 15 million Americans are 55 and older. I'm sorry, not 15 million. There's over 15 million Americans have retired in the past 5 years. 23% of the working force is 55 and older. 65% of all US retirement assets are in defined contribution plans or IRAs. So there's a lot of assets that's going to have to start to come out at age 72 and 75, depending on when you start to retire on those assets. Those are called required minimum distributions. Those assets, as they start to enter into the economy, will help stimulate the economy, but it will also increase your tax base. So these are things that are going to cause some angst a little bit amongst some people. What people don't realize about longevity is if you're in good health and you can live 20 or 30 years in retirement, and you actually could live longer in retirement than you could in working years. So these are things that you have to also plan for, is longevity of the individual. Most people don't realize that Social Security is a large asset that could be turned on. The average Social Security benefit that someone receives is $20,000 a year. Not in New York, though. In New York, it's a lot higher. But nationwide, the average is $20,000 a year. People always say, well, Social Security may not be there. It's 100% going to be there. It's self-funded. It's funded by working people. If they can't figure out how to make Social Security work, they'll just keep taxing the wage base. So that's just what they do. So they keep on taxing the wage base. The one thing that you have to look at is the IRMAA. That's the amount of money you pay for health care in retirement. Medicare is not free. You have to pay for it from your Social Security, and it's wage based. So as your income starts to increase in retirement, as you start turning on income streams like required minimum distribution from your IRAs, your income might start to increase. Every year your Social Security increases with inflation. Last year was the largest increase in 7.2% when it increased. It's increasing more. I'm sorry, it's actually increased by 8% last year, Social Security, and it's going to increase some more every single year. So as that increases, the amount of money you're receiving from all retirement assets is increasing, and the amount of cost that you pay for health insurance starts to increase as well. The IRMAA starts to really take effect at age 80. There are some people that, remember I said the average Social Security people are getting is about $20,000 a year. There are some people that are paying $20,000 a year for their health insurance. So they're actually paying for their Social Security is going 100% to the cost of their health insurance, Medicare. So that's actually been quite problematic, and people don't really pick up on that until they're actually in it and they're living in it. One of the things I did want to talk to you about is rate of return. Rate of return for accumulation mode, when you're accumulating assets for retirement, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter if the ups and downs. As long as you keep it invested, you're totally fine, and everyone agrees with that. Matter of fact, I did a talk. I said, if you had $100 and you invested that $100 in 1 year, you got 100% rate of return. How much is that $100 now worth? And people say, well, that's 100% rate of return. It's going to be $200. That's correct. $200 is the correct answer. If you had a 50% loss the following year, how much do you have left in your account? And people think about it for a second. They say, well, 50% loss would mean I lost 50% of my value of $200. So I have $100. That's correct also. You have $100. What's the average rate of return of that $100 though? And they say, well, if I started with $100 and I ended with $100, my average rate of return would be 0. That's not true. From the mutual fund standpoint, if you had 100% rate of return and you had a 50% reduction the next year, you add the 100 to the negative 50, you have 50. You divide the 50 by 2 to get an average rate of return of 25%. But you don't have 25% when you look at your account balance. You have exactly what you started with. So your actual rate of return is actually 0. Your average rate of return would be on paper 25%. So now you say to yourself, well, it doesn't make any sense. The truth is, we don't live on averages. We live on actual. We live on actual return rates of return. And the order of which I get my return doesn't really matter. It's where I get my return at the bottom line is what I actually have. So if I had where am I going with this? So so we're talking about rates of return. It's the order of which I get my return doesn't really matter. It's just the bottom line is how much return I actually get in my portfolio. When we talk about retirement plans to our clients, we always try and find tax efficient matters on how to distribute assets, and we have to figure out the most efficient tax way to distribute those assets without having to, one, trigger additional taxes, and two, make sure that we have the assets last as long as possible. Planning for retirement, if I know exactly the day you're going to die, do you remember ING used to have, or ING, Voya used to have that orange line that used to follow, and you can follow it almost to the penny. You can get exactly how much money you need at the end of the tunnel, and it'll say like, you start following this line, you go all over the place, and then you could like $1,600,400.26, or something to that effect. And that's exactly how much money you need to the dollar to live. Well, they're not really taking consideration your age and the fact that the inflation could be a part of this thing. So if inflation does what it did last year, that can have a huge impact on your portfolio. I mean, I know today, when I go to the supermarket, I'm amazed at how little stuff I have in my cart, and I'm amazed at how much I'm actually spending on the groceries. I'm like, holy cow, that was $30. I only bought like 3 things. And a dozen eggs is crazy expensive. I can't get over how this is crazy, but this is what we live in. We don't live on average. If we averaged out what we live on, that's fine. If I was standing, 50% of me was standing on a surface that was 132 degrees, and the other 50% of me was standing in a bucket of cold water that was 32 degrees, on average, I'm 82 degrees. That's good, but I'm uncomfortable on either side. But one side of me is really, really uncomfortable because it's hot and my foot is melting. The other side is really uncomfortable because I'm freezing and my foot is frozen. But on average, it looks great on paper. We can't live on that. We have to live on the reality is we have to be able to be focused on what we're going to be getting in retirement and how we're going to be able to make this money last forever and be able to leave a legacy at some point. This accountant that I was talking to today, she says, I don't let anybody retire until they get rid of their mortgage. And I'm like, I don't know if that's the best idea. I said, if you think about it, most mortgages up till last year, you were getting some pretty good, rates. I mean, I have a client of mine. She got a jumbo mortgage for 2.9%, and that's amazing. It's a really good value for a cost to borrow. Now it's 8%. So if you're borrowing money, it's going to be 8%. So I wouldn't recommend for that person to get rid of a under 3% mortgage in retirement just so that they can have a mortgage-free home. If you have the asset investing more, if you're getting more of a return on your investments, better than 3%, you're better off keeping the mortgage and just paying it as you go. Plus, you also get tax deductions for the interest on the mortgage too. So that's another feature that you wouldn't normally get if you were renting someplace. So I don't necessarily say to somebody like to just eliminate the mortgage and have a debt-free house unless you do a full analysis on it. So those are some of the things that you should know about. And advanced care planning is really a key thing too. I can't tell you how many people, especially domestic partners, who aren't necessarily married, but they live together and they make decisions together, and all of a sudden you have one person going to a hospital or something like that, and the doctor can't share any information with that person, even though they're the person that they rely on the most. And if you don't have directives indicating that that's the person that's your healthcare proxy, the doctor can't do anything for you. So it's so important to have your proper healthcare proxy, your durable power of attorneys, your durable powers, all your powers, advanced directives. You have to have them all before something like bad happens. That's things that you have to address. So not only do you have to let your friends and family know about your medical history and what to expect, you should also have some directives to help indicate that stuff. With that in mind, I don't know. I mean, I could talk more about like some stats, but I think it's kind of like boring. But
But Mark, I have a question, and maybe other people have a question too. So, one was, we were talking before, you and I were talking about making sure you have somebody else kind of hearing what's going on, even in financial. We talked about that for medical, but we were talking a little bit about a trusted advisor or a trusted person, contact person for financial things. Do you
yeah,
remember that?
yeah. So now with a lot of the changes in some of the laws that are going on with setting up accounts, they ask, do you want to add a trusted advisor? You don't have to add a trusted advisor, but it's usually recommended to do so. And most advisors just click the button that says, no, the client declined to do that. So don't do that. Don't let your advisor click the button, and because it's just extra paperwork for them. They have to ask more questions to the client to get the information. If they don't get that information, they could click the button and it goes away, and you can keep processing the application. So asking for a trusted advisor, not that the trusted advisor can do sales or trades or transactions. It's just someone that, just in case they can't, the client on the account, the individual on the account goes into a hospital or is non-responsive to something, someone can get some information. They technically, you're not allowed to reveal any information that the client even has an account at a bank or in an investment house, unless there's a trusted advisor on there that you can give that information to. You don't have to tell them to sell the account, because that doesn't work. I can't sell the account because my trusted advisor happened to call and said, sell the account. You just can't do that. But you can give them some information. Yes, the account is a joint tenants rights and survivorship account. The account is invested in bonds, muni funds, whatever it may be. But that's about the extent that you can get to it. So I
That's
hope that answers the
perfect.
question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that again, for these things, when somebody has capacity, but it's always nice to, if somebody you trust, to hear and understand with you, so that you have, if you're a solo agent or not, to have somebody there that can hear the same things, so that you feel comfortable.
Well, it's funny you say that, Nicole, because also there's a person on the Friday after Thanksgiving. There's a solo ager who she's really nervous about making decisions, and she said, "Can I bring my son? But he's not going to be in town until Thanksgiving. Can I bring him to ask to help and make me feel more comfortable about what we're talking about?" I said, "Absolutely." But do you work the Friday after Thanksgiving? I went, well, of course, I'm not going to let this woman try and make a decision that's life changing without the comfort of her son listening, at least listening to what's going on. So yeah, we have to make these adjustments, but this is like exactly what Nicole's talking about. You really want to make sure that you have someone that you can trust and confide in when making these decisions, because look, a lot of times there are some things that just goes over people's heads and they just don't get it, and they just think they have to do it because that's what they're told to do. So yes, definitely bring somebody into the mix, let them know about this financial situation, what's going on in your life, and that kind of stuff.
Thank you very, very much. Do we have any questions? I'm looking here in the chat box. I don't see anything, but if you'd like to take yourself off mute and ask a question, please feel free.
So, hi, this is Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, I'm driving, but I always have a question. And this is, I think I don't know who the right person is to bring in this kind of situation. The client has severe Alzheimer's, and she does have 2 power of attorneys, neither of which know her very well or are interested in being active in her financial issues. Now, they care about her. They had all good intentions, but they just don't know what things are. And the person who was actually helping her was a friend of her husband, and then he passed away as well. So now, even if he hadn't, things probably would have gone south, as they have been now, where I started to look at what she actually had, because every month the pool trust was in arrears. Like every month, the person who was helping her with the pool trust would say, oh, there's not enough money in the pool trust to, pay for such and such. So she's also now, because it's about 2 years since her husband passed, saying, I hate being at home. She does have a Medicaid home care. I hate being home alone. I really think I should go to assisted living. And she has a very big mortgage. So the more I called about the mortgage, because I said, this looks like the worst thing that's happening is that the mortgage takes up so much of her
This sounds
excess
like a
income.
conversation, Karen, for Peter.
Yeah. Who?
That he might be
Okay.
maybe that person needs a money manager, but it also speaks, and I'm sure Peter would be welcome to speak with you offline and see if he could help. But it also brings to point, Karen, and thank you for bringing it up, is the fact that if the time to be planning these things is now, right? The best of intentions, like you said, people have the best of intentions, but they don't have the capabilities of doing it. That's not the person you want to make your financial power of attorney. So that's a really good question, and it's really important to think about now while we're vital and able to, and that's part of making that diverse group of people, and which clearly they're lucky enough to have you one of them. So thank you.
And Peter, he's on my speed dial.
Yes, Peter, it's fabulous. Okay, so with that, thank you so much for that question, Karen, and thank you all for coming. I know it's that time to end, but please stay tuned, and thank you again, Mark and Peter, for helping us through this and giving this vital information. And if you have any questions, you have the information to reach out to them. This will also be recorded, so you can tune in at any other time as well and share with your friends. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.